Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my recordings. So earlier today I was having a conversation with Robert Bird. Robert Bird reached out to me, sent me a provocative message that sparked a thought. And anytime someone can kind of spark a thought in me that gets and it gets me to thinking, it gets me to pontificating and noodling. It oftentimes results in a video. And I want to give Robert a huge shout out for reaching out to me with his provocative question. And we're going to get into his question in just a moment. And we're going to talk a little bit about like the response. What I will say is that Robert's question is reminiscent of questions that have been posed previously and videos that have been created previously to address these kind of questions. But, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you talk about it once, but in many ways on this channel, it's a continuation of a conversation, right? It kind of starts in one place and it kind of meanders in a couple of different ways, and it results in a couple of different videos. And so the way that I look at this channel in some ways is that it's one long conversation about several different things. And so there are other videos on the channel that I will try to link in the description of this particular video, because I'm not going to go into as much detail on those other things because there are videos that are kind of sort of dedicated to those particular topics. But this will be additive in many ways and supported by those other videos. And so specifically the videos I'm talking about are ones that I created around scarcity and rarity, which is going to be something that we touch on in this video. And also the dark side of the third party grading. That was another video that I created. And I'm going to touch on ideas and thoughts from both of those, but it would be helpful if you go back and listen to those particular recordings. It might actually help you to kind of frame up what's going to be discussed in this one in a different kind of light. So I definitely want to encourage you to do that. So Robert's question to me was whether I believed that any modern books that were coming out now, like, you know, after 2000, whether any of those comics would ever reach the level of an FF1, an AF15, an ASM1, X-Men 1 in terms of price point. And my short answer to him was yes. That was my short answer. And then I went on to say, that's the short answer. The long answer, and I spent a lot of time engaging him in a discussion around what my long answer was. But here's the thing. I'm curious what you think. I'm curious because this is one of those conversations and one of those topics that there is no right answer. There's no wrong answer. There are answers. There are thoughts. There are beliefs. There are things and ideas that people have about this particular topic. So I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to write down your thoughts in the comment section so we can talk about it. Let's discuss it. Let's have. One of the things that I enjoy most about this channel is just the back and forth discussion that is constructive, right? Where we just kind of examine this thing. Because I am really curious as to what you all's thoughts will be on this, on whether comics that are coming out now will be worth something in the future similar to the values that we might be seeing with current Silver Age comics right now. And again, my answer is yes. That is my answer. I'm going on record to say that. I hope that I'm here in the future to either be correct or be proven wrong. Hopefully in 40 years, man, we can still be doing this thing and talking about this topic. So I definitely look forward to reading your comments in the comment section. But I want to dig into this right now. I want to dig into it a little bit more. And again, huge shout out to Robert for prompting this question and prompting this video. So the part of the reason why I said yes to this question is this, and there are a lot of reasons. The truth of the matter is that those people that were reading Amazing Spider-Man #1 and FF #1 and Hulk #1 and AF15 back in the day, they had no clue that the comics that they were reading at that time were going to be worth something in the future. They had no clue, right? Generally speaking, your average person read a comic, traded that comic, threw that comic away. right? They loved that comic. They read it over and over and over. They threw it in a box, or they threw it in a drawer or something like that. They traded it to a friend for another comic. By and large, or they threw it away. By and large, that was how comics were treated back in the day. They were periodicals. They were consumed and then they were disposed of, right? There were some individuals out there that actually saw the collectible component or the collectible nature of comics, and that's why we have pedigree collections right now. There are people out there that bought these comics and they treasured them and they cultivated them, and they are now presenting them to the community at really high grades. These are really fantastic books that are out there, but by and large, your average person did not see the potential in that particular comic. They did not see it. But they were buying these comics and they were enjoying them for what they were, but they did not necessarily see the long-term potential that was associated with these comics. Because rest assured that if someone had Action Comics #1 and they knew that that comic was going to be worth millions in the future, they would have held on to that comic. They did not know, but they bought them and they enjoyed them. So part of the problem, of course, is that there are comics that are coming out right now that are good. They are well written, they are well illustrated, and we don't know which of those comics will be worth something in the future. We have no clue. The same way that the people in the past had no clue that the books that they were reading, throwing away, trading, whatever it was, even those that were collecting those comics, I don't know that they fully appreciated that the comic that they were collecting and preserving was going to be worth millions of dollars in the future. I don't know that. The same way we don't know it now. So that advice that people give out there where they say, buy what you love, to some degree or another, that is true. You should be buying comics that you love, that you enjoy, and that theoretically could be worth something in the future. Right? Because we honestly have no way of predicting which comics are going to be valuable. We really don't know that. We know to some degree or another what drives value. We do know that, and there are there are a couple of factors out there, right? Two of the factors, and this is something I discussed in a previous video and I'll try to link, is around scarcity and rarity. Scarcity and rarity are two things that actually drive the value of comics. And so when you hear scarcity and rarity, a lot of people assume that those terms are the same, but they are not. They are actually different. And I want to talk about it very briefly. Rarity is when there is something that is truly in short supply. So what we're talking about is that when there is a handful of something, there are 10, 15, 20, 30, there is a handful of something where there is not a lot of supply. There is not a lot of inventory in existence. That is rarity. When you have something that is in high demand, that is scarcity. The demand for something makes people feel that it is actually rare. So let me give an example. When you think about a high grade of Amazing Spider-Man #1, you think of, I'm gonna make this up, a 9.8 of Amazing Spider-Man #1 is a rare thing. And I probably should have gone to the CGC census to see how many there are, but let's just say that there's 2. That is a rare item. A 9.8 of Amazing Spider-Man #1 is a rare thing. Now contrast that to, let's say, Hulk 181. Hulk 181 is not a rare thing, not at all. There are over 10,000 of them on the CGC census. Now, Hulk 181 is scarce because there is a lot of demand for that book. There are a lot of Hulk 181s out there, but a lot of people are holding them. They are keeping those books in their collection. They're not selling them. They're not making them available, which means that when the demand is higher than the available supply, that creates scarcity. Scarcity is the perception of rarity, in other words, right? Hulk 181 is not rare, but because people buy them, hold them, don't sell them, but other people still want to buy them, it makes them feel that it is rare, but it is not. It is actually scarce. But these two things, scarcity and rarity, are two things that actually drive value of comics, right? They drive value of comics. If people bought Action Comics #1, if they printed 10 million copies, that is not rare. Probably not even scarce. But what happened is they printed those comics, people read them, they threw them away. People went off to war, they were disposed of. Children grew up and went to college, they were thrown away. Mom, dad needs to clear up the garage, they were thrown away. Lots of books were trashed and destroyed, which made certain books rare because the inventory that was there was actually destroyed, which made the books rare, which of course drove up the value of those particular comics. A really popular comic, again, can be made scarce because a lot of people want to buy it. And so those are two things that have helped to drive up the prices of some older books, right? If you look at some older books, if you look at blue chip comics over time, there is a time period at which some comics weren't really worth much of anything. For like 10 years after they were released, 15 years, they weren't really worth much. But in year 20, in year 30, in year 40, the value of those comics have actually gone up because of scarcity and rarity. And I know this because I've actually looked at the date. I've actually looked at some blue chip comics over the course of 40 years, did this analysis with somebody many months ago. And what we found is that, again, some comics were super flat for 10 years. And then all of a sudden they started to go up over time as scarcity and rarity started to have an impact on those particular comics. Now, scarcity and rarity could affect comics in the future, but we don't really know how, right? And to some degree or another, and again, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are, rarity may not actually come into play in the future. And I say that because even if there is a limited run of a particular comic, let's say that they print 10,000 of something, that is not rare. It's not rare. Could be scarce, but it's not rare. But here's the thing. If they print 10,000 and then whoever is the publisher or the creator of that book sends off half of them to CGC or CBCS or PGX or EGS to actually get graded, and now you have 5,000 of them that are actually encapsulated, you may not have rare books that are 9.8s or 9.9s or 10.0s or whatever it happens to be, because so many of those books have actually been graded, thus preserved over time. So rarity may not actually be a real thing in the future. So it may not be a driver of value as we move into the future, especially again with the invention of third-party grading and the quality of our ability to preserve comics. Books are printed, yes, in smaller quantities, but those smaller quantities are being protected in ways that people could not imagine back in the day. 20 years from now, people will still have a lot of 9.8s that are just pristine books that are 9.8s, right? So if rarity is not a driver, then is it scarcity? Is scarcity the driver? Is it still about demand? Maybe future value could be driven by demand, but the question becomes, whose demand? Is it your demand, or is it the demand of the people that are buying comics in the future? It is probably that. So the question becomes, how do you predict what people in the future, 20, 30, 40 years from now, will actually like? How do you predict what they will actually want to buy and spend their money on? I don't know how you do that. You can make a lot of guesses about it. I mean, one could honestly say that if you buy Spider-Man, Spider-Man's not going anywhere. Spider-Man will be here 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Spider-Man will still be here. Incredible Hulk. There are a lot of characters that are not going to go anywhere. But which books? Do you just stay with the volume ones and that's what you buy? But you know, volume 1 of Hulk 180 of Hulk is incredibly expensive, right? Amazing Spider-Man #1, incredibly expensive. And so you say, okay, well, maybe you get Spider-Man or Hulk or something like that, but you get the modern book. But which one? Which one do you get? Which one do you buy? Especially with variants out there. Which cover do you buy? Do you buy the ratio variant? Do you buy the limited variant? Do you buy the A cover, the B cover? Which one do you buy? I don't know the answers to those questions. And again, even if something is printed as a exclusive variant, and they make 500 or 600 or 700. It's a small number, yeah, but a lot of them could also be 9.8s. And so rarity, whether you're talking about the book itself or the grade of the book, is not necessarily a real thing. So again, it might go back to scarcity. But if it goes back to scarcity, it becomes a question of which volume does someone actually want? Which particular book? Is it the 20th volume of Amazing Spider-Man, or is it volume number 1 through 441? I don't know. And then people ask me all the time, which book should I buy that will be worth something in the future? I don't know. And one argument that I would always, or one thing I would always say to them is, maybe you buy the book that is actually worth something right now. If you want to know what is going to be worth something in the future, maybe what you do is you buy Silver Age, Golden Age, Copper Age, Bronze Age books that are actually worth something right now. And the thought is that if it's worth something right now, and it is a volume 1 type of book, that in the future, when this hobby survives into the future, because I believe that it will, but maybe it is that volume number 1, Silver Age, Golden Age, Bronze Age, whatever age book it is that you bought back in the day, that is still worth something. But many of you out there may make the argument that, hey, these variants are really nice, and there's not a lot of them that are produced, and I have a 9.8 or I have a 10.0 or I have a 9.9, whatever it happens to be. I believe that this particular book will be rare, will be scarce into the future. Some people can make that argument. And if you do, support it. Support the argument, because I mean, again, I think this is all really healthy stuff. One could say that, again, the future value is going to be derived from demand, aka nostalgia, right? As people continue to get older and the next generation comes along, and, you know, people move from their 20s into their 30s into their 40s, and they have more disposable income, nostalgia will come into play. Like right now, I think one of the popular terms on YouTube is boomer comics. Boomer comics is a popular topic right now, or a search term because I think that boomers who have a ton of disposable income are buying up comics. And so the next generation that, you know, has disposable income will potentially be searching for comics online, and nostalgia plays a huge part of that. Some might say that independents are the way to go. Indies with their short and small runs, that could potentially be the way to go. I don't know. We actually have a video that probably has already dropped where I actually ask for recommendations on independent comics, and maybe the future is independent comics because of their short print runs, their more creative stories, their, you know, ability to go beyond the Marvel mold and the DC machine, if you will, that they have some latitude to be able to do some really cool content. And so some might say that independence is where the value will come from in the future. I'm honestly don't know. And the question becomes, what do you think will drive future value in the future? How do you predict what will be worth something in the future? Are you even trying to do it? Or are you simply saying, you know what? I don't know what the future holds. I'm thinking about the here and now. I'm buying comics that I enjoy, that I want to read, that bring me some escapism from normal life. Maybe that's what you say. I don't know. But I am actually looking forward to hearing your thoughts. I'm looking forward to reading your comments around this particular topic, because I want to know where the future value will potentially come from, and is it even important? Does it even matter? And that's actually something that we've spoken about before, is are we too focused on value and not necessarily focusing on comics for what they are, which is fantastic works of art. I am looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Please share them with me. And if you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so at Regie Collects on Instagram, at RegieCollects@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you did, if you enjoyed it, tell a friend, hit the thumbs up button. Make sure that you subscribe if you are not already subscribed to the channel. Take care.